This map captures it's like a checklist of non-compliance. There was never any intent in this building to comply with that court order. Never. Also, there was never any intent in this building to comply with the Voting Rights Act.
That was Alabama state lawmaker Chris England speaking on Friday. A Democrat lodging one final objection as Alabama Republicans defied an order from the United States Supreme Court to fix a very problematic congressional map. Last month, the Supreme Court found Alabama in violation of the Voting Rights Act. In Alabama, 1 in 4 voters is black, but Republicans in the legislature cleverly constructed the state's congressional districts, so only 1 of 7 congressional districts in the state is majority black. That was too racially discriminatory, even for this hard-right conservative United States Supreme Court. And so the court ordered Alabama to redraw the lines so black voters would make up the majority of or something quite close to it in 2 congressional districts, not just 1. To that, Alabama Republicans just basically said, no, we won't do it. They did draw new lines for new districts, but the new lines don't include anything like a new majority black district. So what does this mean? I mean, the sort of best case terrible scenario here is that Alabama Republicans are trying to stretch this out as long as possible to try and give themselves another shot at holding another election with illegal, racially discriminatory maps that favor Republicans. That's the best case terrible scenario. The worst case terrible scenario is that Alabama Republicans are just deciding that they don't recognize the authority of the federal government and federal courts. And that, of course, brings back all sorts of bad memories about what Alabama is capable of. But when we're about to have a presidential election in which the central question is likely to be whether or not we as a country follow the law, whether the law applies to everyone, this is a particularly incendiary move by Alabama Republicans, one that Alabama Democrats like State Rep Chris England have been raising the alarm about.
One thing that I always say about Alabama, it continues to be the place where the dead bury the living. We're haunted by a ghost of the past. And every time we get to a critical juncture where better angels could lead us in a proper direction, we refuse and we say, we dare defend our rights.
Joining us now is Chris England. He is a Democratic member of the Alabama House of Representatives. Representative England, I really appreciate you making time to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to ask you about those 2 scenarios that I just mentioned there. Do you think that Alabama Republicans are just sort of playing for time and knowing they're going to lose this, but they're dragging it out as long as possible? Or do you think they really are making an attempt to resist or nullify this federal court order?
I think it's a host of different things. I think at the bare minimum, it's an attempt to protect status quo. But at the worst of it all, I think it's an attempt to also buy time to use this illegal map for 2 more years. But the other part of it is, I think it's an extension of the work that was done to eliminate Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act in the Shelby County case to now maybe using this non-compliant, defiant map to go back to the Supreme Court and hopefully convince the justices that, we're all conservatives here, so throw us a bone and maybe finish off Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act as well.
So if the Supreme Court was already willing in the Shelby County case to gut the Voting Rights Act by getting rid of Section 5, but Section 2 still exists, you think they may be doing this basically to tee up a case that would throw out the rest of the Voting Rights Act, that would throw out Section 2 as well?
Oh, no, I don't doubt it. I think it's a long legal strategy that ultimately buys them either time or makes another argument to go after Section 2. But on the other hand, it also throws the entire map to 1 or 2 people. A special master will draw it, and we basically shirked our constitutional responsibilities to represent our constituents and use them essentially as collateral damage for a political cause. And it was actually driven by people who don't even live here. If you remember, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, called the Senate sponsor of the map and told him he's interested in keeping his majority. But I think Alabama citizens were probably more interested in the state keeping up to its obligations and following the law.
Kevin McCarthy encouraging defiance of the federal courts in order to eke out more illegally defined Republican-leaning districts obviously has disturbing national implications, but so does just saying that court orders don't matter, that if the federal courts are going to stand up and tell states what to do, states have an option to disobey those orders. I wonder, Representative England, what's been the reaction among Alabama voters, among your constituents, among black voters in Alabama in general, as this fight has played out the way it has?
Disappointment, disgust, but not surprised. There's interesting context here that many African Americans who occupy elected spaces in Alabama are representing districts that are majority minority and that were created by court orders from lawsuits that were filed years ago. The 7th Congressional District itself was a district created by a lawsuit and a court order. And interestingly enough, not only is the Black voting age population in the newly created 2nd Congressional District 39%, but the 7th Congressional District, this was created by a court order for the specific purpose of electing an African American, saw its Black voting age population in this new map go from 55% to 50%, which is just another, just an outright slap in the face if you're considering the fight and the history that Alabama shares with the rest of the country in terms of courts and the federal government having to force Alabama to do the right thing in situations like this. So it is not surprise, but still disappointment in the fact that Alabama once again gets to this crucial threshold and fails to do the right thing. Alabama
State Representative Chris England. Sir, thank you for joining us tonight. I know this is not over. We'd love to have you back and keep us surprised as this fight keeps playing out.
Oh, yeah, anytime. I got a lot more to say.
Good. All right, we'll have you back, sir.